This right here is the 2025 Panigale V2S, which is Ducati's, let's be kind to you, wrists sports bike. And under the fairing is an all-new 890cc 90-degree V-twin. It's lighter, cleverer and downright civilised, which, to be honest, is the theme of this video. In the same way as I did when I reviewed the 950 Supersport a few years ago, I refer to this as a gentleman's sports bike. So why do I call it that? Well, it's quick, of course, but it doesn't feel like it wants to chew you up and spit you out all the time. It's more sophisticated, still thrilling, still pure Ducati DNA, but it's something you can live with. It's a bike for someone who wants performance with comfort and an element of practicality. It's not as brutal as its big V4 brother, obviously, but that's part of this bike's charm. But the power that this produces is more accessible. So let's just take a quick look at what makes this bike tick: the engine, the chassis, the electronics. But then I want to get out on the road and tell you what it actually feels like to ride and live with day to day. That new engine at 54 kilograms is the lightest twin to come out of the Bormio factory, and it offers 120 horsepower with 93 newton meters of torque. But the headline is how it makes it. Variable intake valve timing smooths the shove from low revs, so you get that flexible mid-range and a calm-ish top end. Gone are the Desmo mechanicals swapped for traditional valve springs, and that means that the valve check intervals are now every 28,000 miles. When it comes to running gear, the S model gets all of the goodies. Öhlins NIX 30 forks up front and a TTX out back, Brembo M50 stoppers, and a chassis that's gone on a diet. The bike is lighter than the old V2, and Ducati's raised the clip-ons and reworked the tank and seat, so you sit in it rather than being folded over it. The net result of that is the bike handles very keenly indeed, but it doesn't punish your wrists. The electronics package features 6-axis IMU with cornering ABS, traction control, wheelie control, engine brake control, multiple power and ride modes, plus the new 5-inch TFT and the Ducati Quickshift 2.0.
So there you go, that's your rundown of the bike and its specs and those sort of bits and pieces. But obviously the important thing is what it rides like. So let's just give you a short blast out on this, and I can talk about my thoughts. Now, I've been riding this for a couple of weeks, and if you've watched the channel you will know, not really the sort of bike that I feature very often. I think the last sports or super sports bike that I looked at was the 950 Super Sport, and this is, I guess, the replacement to that bike. I think this is a slightly more aggressive bike than that was. I kind of referred to that as the gentleman's sports bike, and I'll do the same for this. But it does inhabit the same kind of territory, but this feels sharper and more purposeful. So let's talk about ergonomics initially. It is a sports bike. It is a hands down, arse in the air riding position, but it's not particularly aggressive. I was at a Cambridge Ducati open day, and I had the opportunity to sit on this and then sit on the V4 and go backwards and forwards, and the V4 is obviously a bigger bike, but it's also more aggressive. You've got proper clip-ons on the V4, your hands are down here, you are lent much further forward than you are on this bike. This has just got handlebars off of that top yoke there, so still a sporty riding position, but not uncomfortably so. Now, I can do a couple of hours on this bike without too much trouble. I know I'm an old knacker. You have got more weight on your wrists and your elbows, but it's not sapping. Your feet are up and back, but again, not too aggressive. And the seat itself actually is pretty damn comfortable. Now, to give you some perspective, I'm 5'10" or 178 centimeters tall. I've got a 32-inch inside leg. The layout's good. I like that clock, nice and clear. You don't need anything bigger than that. It shows you everything, and making adjustments to that is pretty simple. You've got a 4-way rocker switch on the side, you've got your cruise control here, your mode button at the top. Fairing gives you a nice bit of coverage. This does a pretty good job. It does sort of kick it up over the top, and I've got a little bit on my shoulders, but it's fairly decent protection. And it's that nature of the bike which makes me like it as much as I do. You can go out for a ride on this and come back feeling relatively refreshed. Obviously that is to do with the slightly more relaxed ergonomics, but also the nature of this engine, and that's probably the next thing to talk about. Obviously the V2 hasn't got the clout and the shove and the visceral nature of the V4, but it's a much more friendly bike for the road. It's very docile around town, and you see if you look at the power charts, the 120 horsepower maximum that this puts out is at 10,750 RPM, so right at the top at the red line. So when you're fishing around down in the 3s, 4s and 5s, it's all very calm and relaxed. Obviously it's a very quick bike. If you're in a dick swinging competition with the V4, yeah, you haven't got that power, but I think this is all the better for that, depending on what you want to use it for. And once you get it singing above 5,000 revs, that exhaust sounds lovely. As you can see, you're not short of power for overtakes. Initially when you start it up cold, it does sound like a bag of nails. Every time I've pulled it out of the garage since I've had it, you start it up from cold, you're a bit like, oh, that's a bit clattery, but that soon disappears. I really do like this engine, and as I said, it's a combination of this engine, the way it delivers its power, the ride, the ergonomics, which I think for me, and maybe for a lot of other people, make this a much better proposition than the V4. Yeah, maybe you're not going to win on the bragging rights at the cafe, but where it matters, out on the road, this is just superb. The quick shifter, which is obviously there as standard, is sublime. Oh, more of that gravel. Oh. Seems like they've top dressed and scraped all the corners, which would be nice when they've resurfaced it, but not so much fun now. Now, combination of the bike's looks, I mean, it is a beautiful looking bike. The way it rides, everything about it is just tick 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 on all of the boxes, so it's hard to dislike it, and it's really hard to pick faults in it, and I really would have to nitpick. The quality of the finish is superb. Certainly on the S model, the suspension is beautiful, so I can ride on lumpy bumpy lanes and it's quite happy. And then once you get onto a nice smooth piece of tarmac, it's just point it and squirt, very predictable, no surprises. If I had to look for negatives or niggles, obviously the mirrors, I think they spoil the look a little bit. They're a necessity, I guess. They spoil the sleekness of it, and over about 50 miles an hour you can't see anything out of them anyway, because they vibrate like an Ann Summers stockroom. So that's not a major thing, but it's, you know, if I've got to find fault in this bike, that would be one of them. The other thing as well is the exhaust. Now, the exhaust sounds nice and it looks fantastic, and generally I'm not really getting much in the way of heat on my legs, but those two cans that sit underneath the rear seat, on days like today when it's 27 degrees, they do toast your backside. But I guess that's bearable in the sense that it's, you know, it doesn't collect up heat down here in between your legs. That's managed very well. It's just your backside, and generally it's only that part of your backside when you're not moving at a decent speed. So apart from wobbly mirrors and a toasty backside, there's very little I dislike about this bike. I have covered off the Skyhook suspension in the Multistrada, and I don't want to labour the point on this, but I just want to talk about how good of a system it is. The bike feels light and nimble, but really planted. One thing I've noticed about this is I get more waves and thumbs up from other motorists and pedestrians than I do on many of the other bikes that I ride. Maybe it's just the fact, you know, it is a bright red, beautiful looking sports bike, and if you want to have a conversation with somebody ride one of these, because whenever you stop for fuel or for a coffee or whatever, people want to come and chat to you, they want to have a look at the bike. So how would I sum this bike up? Well, it's an absolutely beautiful thing to look at. There's no disputing that. I often say that looks are subjective, which they are, but I haven't found a single person yet that's gone, no, you know what, I don't really like it that much. It is just beautiful. The build quality and the way everything is finished is fantastic. The engine is spot on. The suspension, the ergonomics, everything is really nice. The fact that my only nitpicks are that the exhaust can get a little bit hot on your bum cheeks and those mirrors vibrate says a lot about it. It's a bike that you will always turn around and look at when you walk away from it. It's a bike that would be a pleasure to own, and when you ride something like this, I completely get that Ducatista mindset. If you are looking for a fun to ride, gorgeous looking, well spec'd super sport or sports bike, this has got to be on the list. It just has to be.
It's a bike that says, I'll give you thrills, but I'll do it with class. It's approachable, usable, and still very much a Ducati. If the V4 is all chaos and adrenaline, the V2 is charm and precision. But what does all this cost? Well, the V2S that you see here can be ushered out of the dealership doors for £16,995. That is obviously a wad of cash, but for this beauty and sophistication, is that an acceptable price? Only you can be the judge of that. Now, if you haven't got that kind of money sitting in your bank account, and quite frankly, most of us don't, there are PCP deals on offer from Ducati, and using those means you can get one of these in your garage for as little as £155 per month. That's quite a tempting deal. So yes, this is still a Scarlet missile, but the way it delivers its speed, comfort and manners doesn't have the hard edges you'll find on the V4. It'll still do the fast stuff, there's no question about that, but what it won't do is leave you with an expensive chiropractor's bill at the end. I hope you found the video interesting and useful. If you've got any questions about the bike, then let me know in the comment section down below. And all that leaves me to say is, until next time, thanks for watching, take care, ride safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.